Welcome to the Dentistry Speaks Podcast, hosted by members of the Speaking Consulting Network. We interview leaders, meeting planners, and pioneers to help aspiring and seasoned dental speakers polish their skills and reach their potential.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Dentistry Speaks Podcast, brought to you by the Speaking Consulting Network. My name is Kevin Henry. I am so honored to be the host of this podcast, and thank you for joining us for what I'm sure is going to be a great interview with a dear friend of not only personally, but also of the industry and of the Speaking Consulting Network as well, and that is Samir Bhasin with CareCredit. Samir, how are you, my friend?
I am doing very good, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on. It's talk about friends and for an amazing profession. So I love it.
Well, and CareCredit is not only one of the founding sponsors of the Speaking Consulting Network, but also of this podcast as well. So we thank CareCredit for everything that they do for our industry. And Samir, I'm just going to ask you right up front, because as this podcast comes out, we're going to be nearing the fourth quarter of this year. We're looking ahead toward the end of the year. What are some things that you all are seeing from the patient financing side of things that maybe our listeners need to know, whether they're a consultant or in the dental industry?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those things. It feels like this is the first time we're heading into the fourth quarter. Like everybody tries to figure out what do we need to do different, but it's the same. But here's where what I love right around right now. I mean, we are, almost at the end of third quarter. Fourth quarter is right around the corner. It's all in the preparation. I mean, I have heard, and I'm sure you have too, and I know our consultants and coaches have as well, is the challenge around the staffing issues and not having full team on, and which means that the schedule is kind of is hurting, or it's not the schedule, the treatments that are on the books are not. So this would be the time, again, as we head into the year, let's take a look at what are the remaining benefits. Take a look at the patients that still have benefits left for the year, who may or may not have, or actually may have even a CareCredit credit card as part of their profile. So they can pull a report that makes it, 1-2 hit of, so they need the treatment, they've got benefits, and now they can see if they have available credit. Now making it attractive for those patients. So that's like the start. So now starting to send those out, starting to make it attractive before the end of the year. So that's one of the big ones that I would say is to start focusing on, or to really make it like top priority. Yeah. The other is, of course, just like at any time, just how can we improve the conversation? So things have changed. I mean, we are constantly coming out with new resources for the practices. What are some of those resources to help them? Help them with the fact that they may be short-staffed. Help them with the fact that there are treatments pending, and how can we get those patients back into the chair?
And you and I have talked, I feel like, for years about the fact that those conversations don't happen often enough in the practice, and that so often the folks who could actually benefit from the financing and things along that line simply aren't ever presented with those options. And is it just a matter of being scared to have the money talk, or what is it you all see on your side?
Yeah, so you're right. Like, it's been an ongoing challenge. And with the great great resignation, like this, so there's like, if there was already a challenge, there is even more so. But yeah, I think a lot of the times it ends up a lot of perceptions, a lot of myths, perhaps it would be a better way of saying, when it comes to patient financing. I mean, that could include, my patients don't need patient financing because they're either too rich or they don't have good credit. So there's one. The myth of like, it costs us money, so I don't want to offer it to my patients. It could be as simple as, I am uncomfortable talking about money. But if you really start to peel that onion, majority of the times it ends up being the information that they may have is not up to date, is not correct. So there are a lot of myths, there's a lot of misperception. There's perception and reality, and we can help bridge that gap. And that's a lot of the time is what I have come across, at least in my opinion. And working with the reps and working with some of the offices, more often than not, it's about one of those. It's either they feel that the credit quality of their patients, or the desire for the credit for patient financing, or just a simple fact like that they think CareCredit is too expensive to offer. So all of those are, like I said, they are perceptions, and there is a better way of addressing those. It's just to have a conversation with their reps, with me, so we can talk it through, and we may end up being that we are not the solution, but at least now it's not that I think or I feel. It's more of I have more concrete data, more facts, versus an opinion.
And I think it's really important for dental practices to understand that just like they work with a dealer rep, just like they may work with a manufacturer rep, there are CareCredit reps out there as well, who are kind of there to help them navigate through, understand, look through their data to see how much that they're really using the service as well. And I think that's a big benefit from CareCredit that so often is overlooked by dental practices.
Absolutely. And that goes for any product or service you have. I mean, I often say, facts don't care about your feelings. The fact that you may feel that I am doing better, my patients are, I am busy, it does not, it's good if you want to just live in that land, but ultimately as a business owner, and for any business, dentistry, of course, is small business. So for any business, it just makes sense. You just kind of take a look at those numbers, and then you can make a decision. What is good for your patients? What is good for your team? What is good for your practice? Whether it's, a service like CareCredit, or a product like some kind of an aligner, or even your, supplies. It's ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're not doing more of those cases, it doesn't matter how cheap or how inexpensive you may get it, you're not going to use it because you don't have patients getting the treatment.
True.
So yeah, so take a look at it, look at the analytics. If you have something like Dental Intel or a service like that where it can pull the data for you, that will give you a better idea of where and how you can help more patients, where and how you can be more efficient, whether or not you have full team on board or not.
And I'm really glad you brought the analytics side of things, because that makes me think about the consultants. And like I said, CareCredit and the Speaking Consulting Network have a great relationship. If a consultant's going into the practice, how does CareCredit work with that consultant to make sure they're kind of on the same page when talking to the doctor or team?
Yeah, so it's almost like talk about, practice having additional resources at their fingertips. So of course they're working with their coach because the practice feels there are some things that can be better finessed or can be better run, which is great, which is, for any successful practice, everybody needs a coach, whether personally, professionally. So having a consultant and a coach, that's great. Where I think it just kind of comes up beautifully is when a coach or a consultant is working with the practice, and it comes across where patient financing could be one of the elements that they are working on. Well, guess what? Every office that is out there that has CareCredit has a rep assigned to them, whether it's in person, whether it's on phone, depending on how the office prefers it, or like a Zoom, like what doing it virtually. Everyone has a practice, so it's so much smoother, so much better to work in conjunction with, especially if there's a coach that they're working on certain elements of improvement, then connect with the rep and say, listen, at this point in time where I am at, I am working. Could you go over some of the tools or the resources like, Quick Screen on where they know the patient will get approved ahead of time? Could you go over a form that kind of prints out that gives patients all their options that's very professionally done? Could you talk about a QR code? Because most patients want to do things on their own. So there are so many tools and resources we have. The coaches, they know it, and they don't have to be, all they need is just lean on us, just like we lean on them to ultimately help that practice, to help more patients. So giving it a call to me or to our rep and saying, I need you to go and do a training with Dr. Henry's office. They have a new team member, and these are the things that I would like to do. And then it's a nice handoff. And my rep will, that's exactly what they will do, knowing that the office is practically working with an experienced coach and a consultant. Then it's kind of like going feedback. It's a going back and forth and tandemly and together, by collaboration, we just help more patients, help more practices be profitable.
And I'm a big believer that, as a consultant, we don't have to know everything. And I think reaching out to those allies that we have takes a lot of pressure off consultants and coaches to make sure that they're actually not only giving the right information, but they're giving the information that the doctor or team really needs to have too.
Yeah. And, so it's, to your point, as a consultant coach, you're looking at so many things. You're looking from the scheduling to what the office looks like, to how the phone's unanswered, how the assistants are running. I mean, just everything. Patient financing is a small part, critical yet small part of it. So with your expertise, now you just have an expertise on top of expertise. Like, okay, I can at least have or delegate this portion of it, because we are constantly, I have been with the company 16 years, and we still constantly try and figure out what are some of how can we make it easier? How can we make it easier for the team? How can we make it easier for the patients? So there are so many resources available. A lot of the times practices don't know. And since we are constantly evolving, you may have an idea, but it is so much better to say, hey, Samir, can you help this patient? Can you help this practice?
Yep.
And then we find what resource is best at the place where they're at for what they're trying to accomplish. And with your direction, then we say, yeah, let's do that and give them the most updated information.
Well, it's fantastic. And I know CareCredit's been such a valuable resource. I can take, my mom has used CareCredit going into the dental practice. So I know personally the difference that it makes. But let's make sure, Samir, that people know what's the best way for them to learn more information, reach out to somebody there who can really help them understand exactly how to maximize this amazing opportunity.
Certainly. So to like right now I'm at a conference. So as much as I would love for them to send me an email, I'm always here at their service. That's sbasin@carecredit.com. But we made it even easier to where a coach can go to carecredit.com/partner portal/contact us. All they do is enter the practice name and what information, and that information comes to us, and we connect them directly with the rep. So there are multiple different ways. It's just raise your hand, and I will make sure either I or my rep grabs that hand, and we go on this journey together.
It's such a cool thing. I love the together part. And I've got to ask just real quick. So if a doctor or team members listen to this, CareCredit.com, the best place to send them, or is there somewhere specific that you would have them go as well?
So actually they can do the same thing. They can actually go to carecredit.com/partner portal/contact us. Okay. Practice can do the same thing. They can enter that information and what they are looking for, and we can connect directly that way as well. Because like I said, I don't want it to go to a cyberspace and get lost somewhere. Right. That most of that information comes to me or my team, and we will make sure that somebody gets back to them in a timely manner.
Well, Samir, you're such a friend to so many people in the industry, and thank you for that, as well as everything CareCredit does, because I know the Speak Consulting Network, this podcast, and so many dental practices have benefited because of the relationship with CareCredit. So thank you for that, my friend.
It is absolutely our pleasure to be part of SEN, to be part of this journey with a lot of the friends I have made, that the coaches, and giving us the opportunity to help their clients. Because like I said, I am a firm believer of, like many, I always mess up this saying, like many hands lift the burden, or I don't know what the proper saying is, but the more we can do it, the more we can collaborate, the more practices and patients we can help. So I am honored to be a part of this relationship. So thank you so much for having me on.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Always a better day when I can talk to you. And we're going to be right back here on the Speak Consulting Network, Dentistry Speaks Podcast. Again, brought to you by CareCredit. We're going to have another great guest on right after this break. And we are back on this episode of the Dentistry Speaks Podcast, brought to you by the Speaking Consulting Network. My name is Kevin Henry. I am the host of this podcast, and so honored to be joined today by Steve Adams. Steve, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Kevin. Glad to be here.
I am glad to have you, and obviously glad to have you as an SCN member, but I'd love for our audience to know a little bit more about you. Tell them about Steve Adams.
Sure. I grew up in the middle of Michigan in the state capital as a blue-collar kid. My dad worked at General Motors for 33 years. My ticket out of continuing in the factory life, which for 100 years my family did, was go to college. And so I played football in college and had a scholarship. And no problem. We can roll with that, Kevin. And so went away there, got a business degree in marketing and with an accounting minor, went into corporate banking out of college, had a nice 15-year run doing that, learned a ton, wanted to be an entrepreneur. So in my 30s, I quit all of that and ended up, me and my partners grew our franchise pet superstore into the largest franchisee in the nation in our system. We had almost, 800 employees and about 100 million in revenue. But in the process of doing that, flying to 6 different states, I suffered pretty severe burnout. And so I ended up selling my interest to my partners, and I took time off. And I met an amazing doctor in Los Angeles who rebuilt me from the ground up. And he was looking for something different. And so we joined forces and created something called Tiger Medical Institute to basically do what he did for me, and that was fix a high achiever in their middle age.
Wow. And burnout is something that's so prevalent in our society today, and dare I say in the dental industry as well. Yeah. And is that something that whenever you look at somebody who's been suffering from burnout, you see a little bit of yourself in them as well?
I do. And my heart goes out to them. And what's interesting is our chief medical officer, Dr. McNamee, also suffered burnout. And so we both have a lot of empathy because what happens is on your way to that, you go into a standard, and this is not bad mouthing any primary care doc because they are limited in the kind of medicine they can practice based on the payer system. But this is the kind of thing that they struggle with helping you on. And so what I learned from Dr. McNamee, he just has a higher level, more of a root cause approach to that. And he's able to identify specific things that lead him to go, yeah, you're in this and I can help you. But yeah, dentistry, I had a big company as a banker that made dental floss and toothbrushes, and they were the biggest one in the country. And it was owned by a guy named Dr. Najar. And he told me in the early 90s when I was a young kid, he's like, do you know that the highest suicide rate is in dentists? Yep. And they work in tight, dark spaces. They tend to be perfectionistic. They incurred a lot of debt to get through dental school. They had the stress of that, the stress of establishing a practice, stress of paying off all that debt. They get into middle age, they're starting to accumulate some wealth, but by then there's been a toll taken on their body and it starts to show up in their biology.
And I'm curious because so many consultants out there are in the dental practices. They see the burnout. And right. Dare I say it's not just with the dentist, but it's with the dental team members as well.
Right.
Do you see that then you working with the consultants that they reach out to you to say, sure, hey, we've got an issue here and bring you in?
Absolutely. So right now we have, I think around 24 dentists in our programs at the current moment. And they actually are some of our best clients because they are clinical in nature. They have high standards, like that perfectionist side. So they're very good coaching clients. So, our system is a medical process that goes out over a whole year, and they're just ideal for it. And but in terms of consultants, yeah, I would love to work with consultants. Like if they bring us into a situation where a dentist needs help, we would definitely work with them. We would share revenue with them. Some take that and there's nothing wrong with that, and others don't. They just want to show up good for their dentist, so it's really their choice.
And I'm curious because I listened to you on a previous podcast with Ryan Vett, and one of the things that I picked up on is that sometimes we don't even maybe realize that burnout's happening and the effect it has on our health overall.
We don't. Yeah. The reason, Kevin, is that stress is at the baseline of all of this. I follow he passed away in 2018, but Bruce McEwen, New York University, premier endocrinologist in the world. And he said stress is cumulative. And by the time who we work with is typically late 40s to early 70s, believe it or not. The 70-year-olds want to just redefine their 70s for their grandkids, but they're at that end of their dental career, they're retiring. But, we all have a lot of stress, and that's never going to go away. But what we can do is reinvent our relationship to it. And we have a biofeedback process that is the cornerstone and the foundation of our program that basically resets a dentist or a person's autonomic nervous system, pulls them out of stress response on demand. And then that catalyzes a whole physiological set of changes that set up their body to live a lot healthier life. It brings down inflammation, it upregulates immune function and gene expression, improves their focus, improves their sleep, improves their emotional control. So that's the first thing we do, is attack stress.
Nice. And you mentioned the medical side of things as well. Do you see much of a difference between the burnout on the medical side versus the dental side and the health effects from that?
No, it's really similar. So our approach to medicine is we integrate 3 branches of science. We do something called heart rate variability and sleep optimization. That's like peak performance science. That lays the foundation, because if you're stressed and not sleeping, no matter what you do medically, it's not going to help. Okay. We have a core root cause functional medicine approach, but then we also have integrated in Dr. Dale Bredesen from UCLA's Alzheimer's prevention, memory loss, cognitive dementia prevention protocols that he's proven over 30 years. So basically, we're peak performance, we restore your health, and we protect your brain. That's the integration of all of it.
And that's so important. And I, we talk in dentistry about the mouth being connected to the entire body.
Absolutely.
But having the brain intact, impact the entire body as well. I think that's something that sometimes is overlooked. It
is, and I would agree 100%. We talk about that a lot inside our company clinically about, are they sleep? Do they have apnea? What is the condition of their oral health? Because that's a straight line to disease if you've got, a lot of bacteria getting into the bloodstream from your oral health. And that's what makes our dental clients so good, though, is they understand all of that.
Obviously you've been doing this before the pandemic, after the pandemic. What changed in the pandemic as far as what you've seen with some of your clients?
I was in the pet industry in 2007. Chinese imported melamine killed a bunch of dogs, and it caused people to start buying better food for their dogs. And COVID has ushered in an awareness that we can't rely 100% on the medical system to keep us healthy or dying when there's some pandemic. We have to be proactive about our health. And that's the big change I saw. The other thing that's helped is we deliver our whole program virtually, with the exception of one trip to Seattle for a brain scan. And so COVID actually ushered in the ability to do that.
And I'm curious, that brain scan, what does that tell you about your clients?
So we partnered with the Amen Clinic. Daniel Amen's pretty famous author. He's got clinics, a few clinics around the country. So our Alzheimer's protocols is a different branch of brain science. This is based on blood flow. It's called a SPECT scan. And what Dr. McNamee and our other doctor can do is they look at the genetics and then all of the different labs that we get, and they can see the connection between what they're seeing clinically there and what they're seeing in the brain scan. For instance, I was an ex-college football player. I have problems with my balance right now, and we found out through my brain scan that the back of my brain, which is cerebellum, that's your motor skills, I had reduced blood flow. So now I'm on a set of protocols to improve blood flow and improve my balance. So those are the kind of things you can learn.
And things like that you would probably never know without a scan.
No,
like
you
that,
wouldn't.
right?
And the other thing is I have to be really careful here. We have some patients in our program right now who did not know they were in subjective cognitive decline. And through the brain scan and our testing, we were able to bring that to light years before they would have known. And now we can get ahead of it.
So, and I'm curious because my family has Alzheimer's, unfortunately, that runs through it. Did those people know that they were already in decline, or is that something you told them and were preventive?
They didn't. Yep. They were noticing like, hey, so maybe I'm searching for a word, but everybody just goes, yeah, I'm getting older, Sure. But the what's interesting about Alzheimer's now is 30% of the people that are getting it have no genetic predisposition. It's our 21st century lifestyle of stress, our terrible Western diet, and our addiction to devices. They're all conspiring. And then you layer in stress and anxiety and all the exponential change, and that's setting the stage for Alzheimer's in a lot of people. And so we can tell people, if they work with us, we can definitively tell them their risk and where they're at. And so if you have a first degree parent, a mom or a dad, that does give you a higher risk level, but you couldn't get that verified through genetic testing. And then you may not have just because your parents had it doesn't mean you're going to get it. That's my point.
And that's good to know.
Yeah.
To be
right.
honest, on a very personal level, it's very good.
Sure.
What are some signs if somebody's listening and they're going, I'm feeling blah, I'm feeling burned out? What are some signs that maybe they've been going that for a while? Well,
the classic ones are they feel like stress is closing in on them. I gave the metaphor of I feel like I'm going down a railroad track and the tracks are getting wider and wider and wider, and my feet are trying to stay on them and I'm hanging on. But for some people, it can be something like low libido or sexual dysfunction, because that's a canary in the coal mine kind of thing. It can be excess belly fat. It can be loss of energy, brain fog, sleep is poor, or they don't have an indifferent attitude toward like things that used to bother them or make them emotional don't anymore. They kind of get numb emotionally, or they start losing the ability to control their emotions, like lash out. All of those things. There's a myriad of them, and everything I just told you about, most of our patients experience.
And I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago about peak performance, because I always think that we think, that's for athletes, or that's for, but it's not, right? I mean, that should be for all of us.
Right. Well, it's funny. In sports, they play on Sunday and then they rest and recover and then they play again on Sunday. What do we do in the business world and in the dental field is we never stop. And one of the things our program teaches people is, our big idea here, Kevin, is become patient number one. Dentist, you have all these patients. Make yourself patient number one, and when you do, you make everybody around you better. Your business better, your family better, your patients better, because you're showing up as the best version of you. So we teach basically the art of self-care after we go through the clinical process. The peak performance side is we're helping you not return there. Okay, we teach you how to oscillate like a corporate athlete.
And I'm really glad you said that, because that was one thing I was going to ask you, is because once you beat it, how do you keep it from coming back? And obviously it takes work to make
new habits. But basically, one of the things I tell people is you cannot squeeze harder, run faster, work longer. We are in an exponentially changing world. And, some experts say, and I wrote a book called Unleash the Peak Performer Within You. It's on Amazon. In the introduction, I talk about we're in this period of change that experts are saying we're going to experience 100 years of change in 10 years. And I already feel that in 2 years into the 2020s. And so trying to get a new calendar system or be 10% more efficient is a linear approach to an exponential problem. And so what we do with our peak performance training is first of all, we have to get your physiology right, or you can't be a peak performer. We get your psychology right, how you think, and then we help you re-engineer your life so that you never return to this way of living. And so those three legs of the stool are what cause people to be able to be a sustainable high performer in the long run. And so it's all about subtraction. So we say less is more, less is better.
And I think that's a great mantra, especially in today's busy world.
It is.
Focus on a few things instead of everything.
Yes.
And Steve, I feel like this conversation we could have for hours.
Well, you're a good interviewer, man. You just bang.
I've done this a time or two. Hey,
yeah.
So, but you're the expert, so I want people to be able to reach out to you to ask more questions or to learn more about what you do.
The easiest thing to do is go to tigerpi.com. So TIGER, like Tony the Tiger, Tiger, P as in Paul, I as in international.com. We have a learning center there. We got a blog, podcast. We have a ton of content there that you can learn about. And then if you want to talk to somebody, there's all kinds of buttons that say book a session, and you'll get to talk to somebody who can help you sort out whether this is a good fit or not.
It's great stuff, and I know it's making an impact in not only the dental industry but a lot of different industries.
Sure, and one thing, Kevin, can I add? If you're a dentist listening, I have a free book. It's called Patient Number One. And if you just go to tigerpi.com/one, like ONE, so tigerpi.com/ONE, it'll take you to a place where you can get that book. We ask for $5 for shipping, and then we send you that free book, and it'll educate you specifically on what you can do as a dentist.
That's fantastic. I love the resources that are specific for the industry.
Yeah, right.
So great stuff, Steve. Thanks so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you at SCM meeting real soon, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
And thanks to all of you for listening to this episode of the Dentistry Speaks podcast. We love bringing experts together to talk to you about what they specialize in and how it impacts you every day. Our thanks as well to CareCredit for being a founding sponsor of this podcast. But until next time, Kevin Henry signing off and wishing you great success ahead.
Thank you for joining us. To learn more, visit speakingconsultingnetwork.com. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Dentistry Speaks podcast.